everyone, Melody here from the Concerned Kids. Did you know that February is Black History Month? It's a time to celebrate the many achievements and contributions of Black Canadians and their communities, who throughout history have done so much to make Canada the culturally diverse, compassionate, and prosperous nation it is today. Now, in honor of this celebration, I have a very special guest with me today that knows firsthand some of the achievements and contributions that I'm talking about. Everyone, please welcome Rene Livingstone.
Hi, Melody.
Hi, how are you?
I am very well. Nice to meet you, Melody. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to meet you too. Hey, Rene, that is quite the background you have there. Is that Kay Livingstone, your mom?
Yes, it is. This is my mother on the Canada Post stamp.
She's on a stamp? How did that happen?
Well, it was in recognition of all the work that she did. Yeah, I remember like when I was a little girl, and it was just before Christmas time, and my mother would mail out all these stamps, but like 200, not stamps, I'm sorry, envelopes and greeting cards, because it was Christmas time, and there's about 250 of them. So she gave us this little helper job of, and I can remember my sister and I sitting at the table, and there would be stacks of envelopes, stamps, and a little bowl of water. So our job, our little helper job was to seal the envelopes and put on the stamps. So being kids, we preferred to lick the stamps.
Yeah.
So, and when I was doing that, I always noticed that there was a picture of the Queen on the stamps.
Yeah.
And so I never would have believed that one day I would be licking a stamp with a picture of my mom on it.
Oh no!
Yeah, totally amazing.
That would be so amazing. Yeah, licking a stamp with your mom's face on it.
Yes.
Wow.
And look, I have some stamps here. These are the stamps.
Wow.
My mom.
That is so neat. I can't believe your mom is on a stamp. I mean, I hear she is quite the impressive person. I mean, I heard that she was also a social activist, an actor, and a broadcaster. Can you tell us a little bit about her broadcasting days and what her shows were about?
Oh, I most certainly can. So the broadcasting days, they were back in World War II. First starting out, we're back in World War II. What? So all the men, the dads, they went off to war. And, my dad was in World War II. And the moms, the ladies, all the women, they stayed at home. But some had jobs. Some went and got jobs. And my mother had a radio station for her radio show. And she was the first Black woman to have her own radio show. I'm so proud of that.
Whoa, really? Oh, you must be so proud. Her very own show? What was it called?
Yes, it was called The Kay Livingstone Show.
Oh.
And you know what? They even published a book about it.
Really?
It's called Hearing Voices. And so these are all the ladies that, at that time had their own radio show, but here is my mom, Kay Livingstone.
Oh.
And so she had the Kay Livingstone Show. Imagine she was the first Black lady who had her own radio show.
Oh, that is inspiring. She's so well known. Someone else put her in the book. Wow. I mean, that's not all either. I also read that she was not only the president of several associations and committees, but there are even scholarships and awards that still exist in her name. What are some of those
Yes.
scholarships, and how do we get one? Is it one that maybe I could earn someday?
You just might. The scholarships were for, and still are for, students that were working hard, getting good grades, and showing that they want to make something special of their life. It was very important to my mother that visible minorities would continue their education. So these scholarships went to help them go to university, finish their education. It was so important that they had the necessary tools, which was education, so that they could further their life and take their rightful place in the world.
That's
Education.
incredible. Yeah, education is so important. So Renee, you mentioned the term visible minority. Now, your mom came up with that term, right? What does that mean?
She was at she went to a meeting for International Women's Day,
Mm-hmm.
and she looked around the room,
Mhm.
and she noticed that there were no other visible minorities. There was no one else that looked like her or looked different. So she then went back to the government and she reported to them that their visible minorities were not being represented. And so they took on that phrase as visible minorities, and the press and the media took that on as well because they could understand what visible minorities means. So just to kind of explain it to you more, here we saw this book
Right.
on hearing voices. So if you look at this book of the ladies that were doing radio at that time, here is my mother,
Yeah.
Rene Livingstone, who is black, and the other lady here who is Asian.
Oh,
So these two ladies, they are visible, what we call visible minorities. And the other ladies here are white. So that is what is meant by visible minority.
well, we use that phrase all the time. I can't imagine what it was like to grow up with such an influential mom. And oh, I also heard, is this true, that she created one of my favorite events that happens here in Toronto every year called Caribana?
Yes.
Oh,
Caribana was called the Calypso Festival.
oh,
And that was to help raise funds for the organizations that she belonged to. And they just kept having it year after year, year after year, until it became what we know today as Caribana.
oh, that festival is huge and so
It is
much fun.
huge. Yes. Yes. It was the first time that Black culture was publicly, you could see it in a public place. All Black people getting together and having fun,
Yeah.
eating the food and dressing in the costume. So much fun.
Those costumes and the food are my favorite. Although I do like to dance. That's another part that I really love about Caribana. All that culture. Wow. And that still goes on today.
And it still goes on today. It's just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
I also heard you ask about what was it like to grow up with my mother and her being so prominent. And I would say that our household was busy all the time. My mother was either taking phone calls, she was going out to meetings, she was having meetings at the house. They would be in the kitchen, and they would be talking, they'd be planning, and they'd be laughing, having a good time doing all of this. And guess what? I was just a little girl, so when 9 o'clock came, it was time for me to go to bed. But they were still hard at work. And my sister and I would go up to bed, and we could hear them talking and laughing. And it was like a lullaby, just lulling us off to sleep at night.
That's a wonderful way to fall asleep.
Yes, it is. It is. But the phone, it was a busy household, so the phone rang all the time. And my mother would say, actually what she did is she would put down a pad and a pencil, and she would say, write down all the numbers of everybody it calls, because it's very, very, very important. So my sister and I were kind of like, it was kind of like we had the first early home office, and we were kind of like voicemail. We were like the voicemail system, because we just wrote everything down and gave it to her.
Wait, you couldn't just put it into your phone? You didn't have contacts? You had to write it down on paper?
No, we had to write it down, and then we would ask them to repeat it. And we repeat the phone number to make sure we got the phone number right.
You are so helpful. I mean, talk about making an impact. Well, now, okay, so
Yes.
what would you say then, after all of that time and all of the things your mom did, what would you say is your biggest takeaway?
I've got a couple there. One thing that my mom would always say, you know what she would say?
What would she say?
She would say, there is no mountain so high that you can't climb it. She would also say, you can do anything that you want to do as long as you set your mind to it. So maybe one of these listeners here, or you, Melody, might be on a stamp one day.
I could be on a stamp one day? Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
You just put your mind to it and do hard work. And yes.
Work hard, put my mind to it. Those are such great messages to give everybody. Oh, Rene, thank you so much for sharing all of these wonderful stories, and to you and your family for all their inspiring contributions to the Black community and Ontario as a whole province. I guess we should get back out there and start, putting our mind to it and changing the world.
Yes, that's right.
Well, thank you so much, Rene. You take care. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.